Donald Trump can win every single battle, but Iran can still win the war. Because winning doesn't mean the same thing for both sides. For the United States and Israel, victory looks absolute. The annihilation of Iran's political, military, and nuclear infrastructure. But for the Ayatollahs, it is much more simple. Just survive. So the real question now is, how is Iran still standing? I'm Ananya Datta, and stay with me to know 5 strategies Iran is using to survive Trump's war. So this is Iran. For about 3 weeks now, the country has come under intense bombing. The blue points that you see on the screen are basically the target points, but what they also tell you is the intensity of the attack. For example, Tehran, which is the capital city, has come under the heaviest fire so far, followed by Isfahan, which is the 3rd largest city of Iran and also home to nuclear and weapons research. Coming down here to Bandar Abbas, this is a strategic port city which has come under attack. As you can see, it sits right at the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Strait of Hormuz is the same narrow waterway that has in many ways become the epicenter of the war, and we will come to that in detail in some time. For now, I want to talk about another city where there is Minab. Minab is also the city where there was an alleged American airstrike on a school that killed about 168 people, most of them being school children. Another important point on this map is Karg Island. As you can see, it's completely divorced from the mainland Iran, and this Karg Island, as you will often read in the news, is Iran's most sensitive economic point. And that's the case because about 90% of the country's crude export has to cross through Karg Island and is very, very dependent on it. Now, Karg Island already has come under intense fire, but the US President Donald Trump has gone on record to say that it will attack Karg, quote unquote, just for fun. Also, if you're wondering why this bit of Iran, the eastern part of Iran, has not been targeted as much as the rest of Iran, that's a valid question to ask. The thing is, it looks untouched not because of restraint, but because much of it does not really matter to this war. It is mostly covered in desert, the population is scattered and has very limited military or economic infrastructure. Also, it borders Turkmenistan, Afghanistan and Pakistan, these 3 countries on this side, and none of them house American bases, at least on paper. So after weeks of strikes, leadership hits and collapsing infrastructure, how is Iran still standing? And did the US take this into account before the attack?
Iran's #1 priority for this regime has always been about its own survival, more so than taking care of its people, more so than its economy, more so than its capabilities across sectors. Survival is #1.
Iran's military strategy can be divided into 5 parts. First is a Mosaic military structure. Iran isn't built like a normal military. It's built to survive decapitation. It operates parallel armies, multiple intelligence services, and layered command structures, all of which answer directly to the supreme leader. The parallel armies comprise the Artesh, which is Iran's regular army responsible for territorial defense, airspace, and conventional warfare, and the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, aka IRGC, whose role goes beyond defense and includes protecting Iran's political structure. This decentralized structure is deliberate, and it's called a mosaic defense. This concept was formulated by the former IRGC chief Mohammad Ali Jafri. You also see a reference of the mosaic defense in the Iranian foreign minister's tweet from a day after the war started. This complex military structure has helped the country not rely on a single command chain that can be easily decapitated. And that is exactly what happened.
In 2 weeks, we have decimated them. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft weapons. They have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go and name a new leader, and that leadership is gone. And now they think maybe the sun is gone. They're all gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead.
With no clearly stated goals, the US and Israel have been decapitating the Iranian leadership. First the supreme leader, then the defense minister, the security chief, and then the IRGC commander. But none of that has stopped Iran's retaliations.
Look, so the Islamic Republic is a system. It was never really a one-man show. And Ayatollah Khamenei was representing a consensual view within that system. It is true that at the end of the day, he had the final say, but his worldview, I think, has outlived him.
The reason also traces back to Abbas Araghchi's tweet. He says, and I'm quoting, Iran has had 2 decades to study defeats of the US military. They have incorporated lessons accordingly, so bombing the capital will have no impact on Iran's ability to conduct war. And that brings us to the second point of strategy: weapons. Let's start with the ballistic missiles. Ever since the Iran-Iraq War of 1980, Tehran has been conscious of the need for an effective ballistic missile arsenal. And over the decades, it has built some of the best in the business. The deadliest is the Fateh-1, which is hypersonic and has a maneuverable warhead. Let me explain that. You see, traditional ballistic missiles behave in a very predictable way. Once launched, they follow a parabolic trajectory that can be calculated. And missile defense systems are built around that predictability. They track the incoming object, estimate where it will be, and try to intercept it at that calculated point. A maneuverable warhead, which is on top of Fateh-1, disrupts that logic. Instead of falling along a fixed path, it can adjust its course during the final phase of flight. What that does is, even a small directional change at that speed can throw off interception calculations. Reportedly, there is also the Fateh-2, which is a hypersonic cruise missile designed to offer greater maneuverability. Then there is the Fateh-110 family, which are solid fuel missiles known for their rapid launches and accuracy. Now, these missiles fall within 10 to 25 meters of their target. These missiles, as accurate as they are, can still be intercepted. Which is why, in the last attack on Tel Aviv, we saw Iran use cluster munitions. They burst at high altitudes. They are less effective against hardened targets, but much harder to intercept. Iran has also used its medium-range missiles like Sejil. It uses solid fuel, which means that the missile can be launched very quickly without much preparation. So if Iran thinks it might be hit, it can fire these missiles almost immediately, making them harder to destroy before launch, and more useful in a fast-moving conflict like we are in right now. Tehran also has a number of low-flying cruise missiles like the Pave, Sumar, Ya Ali, Quds variant and Ra'at for land attack and anti-ship roles. The accuracy of all these systems has been enhanced by the Iranian shift from the GPS that was traditionally used to the Chinese Beidou 3 satellite constellation. The 12-day war with Israel significantly degraded Iran's missile capability, but ever since, it has ramped up its production and replenished much of its stock. Then, of course, there is Iran's USP, the drones. Shahed 136 and the jet-powered Shahed 236 drones have proved remarkably effective in their strikes on the Gulf targets. The Iranians have been able to produce them in significant numbers, and though slow and vulnerable, when used in swarm tactics, they can often defeat sophisticated defenses. In fact, some drones have been obtained from Russia to counter Israel's defense system. The rate of missile launches has come down though. According to Al Jazeera, in the first 24 hours of the conflict, Iran had fired about 167 missiles and 541 drones at the UAE, for instance. By contrast, on day 15 of the conflict, it had shot merely 4 missiles and 6 drones. But experts say that this should not be taken as a sign that Iran is running out of weapons. It has the largest inventory of ballistic missiles in the region.
It is true that the US and Israel have a much higher capacity to inflict pain on Iran, but Iran has a much higher threshold for pain. And the view is that Iran can basically withstand in an attritional conflict way more than Israel and the US have staying power in this conflict.
And while the Israelis and the Americans have targeted the limited number of launchers Iran has, some reports also indicate that the country may have created underground silos which are hard to detect. And faith in this kind of multi-layered strategy has turned the rivalry into a regional war. And that brings us to Iran's third point of strategy.
I heard they were sending missiles to UAE. I said, that's strange. You know, UAE is like the banker for Iran. They're like the banker. Qatar, their neighbors, they got along okay. Saudi Arabia. All of a sudden, Kuwait is getting hit. Bahrain is getting, all these countries are getting hit. There was no expert that would say that was going to happen. It's not a question of like, gee, should you have known? And if we did know, big deal. I mean, we have to do what we have to do.
The US president says none of his advisors told him prior to the war that Iran could have targeted other countries in the Middle East. Just to put it out there, Tehran has been saying from the very beginning that this war will turn regional if it is attacked. Of course, nobody clearly stated the extent of it. You see, the United States has about 19 military bases across the Middle East. The blue points that you see on this map are the US military bases, either of its own or of allied countries. And they have expectedly come under enemy fire. But Iran's war strategy was to bring the war home in the Persian Gulf, which it has successfully done by weaponizing the Strait of Hormuz as well as attacking all the countries in the Gulf. As you can see, the red dots here mark the Iranian strikes that have taken place on the fellow countries in the last 3 weeks.
The fear is that some of the red lines that are still in place can be crossed in the near future. And I'm thinking of large-scale attacks against energy infrastructure in different countries in the Gulf region, not only in Iran, but maybe with Iran also attacking neighboring countries' energy installations.
But what is the red line anymore? Tehran has already pushed oil prices to higher than $100 a barrel and sent global markets into panic mode. The second biggest exporter of natural gas, Qatar, continues to keep shut its production. Bahrain's state oil company has declared disruptions should be expected, and oil production from Iraq's main southern oil fields has plunged 70%.
It is natural that we have not limited ourselves only to their formal military bases. Wherever there has been a concentration of Americans, wherever they have had facilities belonging to them, those places have been targeted. Some of these may have been close to urban areas. This is not our fault.
And this isn't just turmoil in the Middle East anymore. It's beginning to look like an economic world war. The US has just waived a century-old shipping law to let foreign ships transport oil port to port. There is an LPG shortage in India. Sri Lanka has announced a holiday on Wednesdays to save fuel. Kenya is reporting a rise in transport fares, and the UK's cost of living is set to worsen. Add to that proxy groups. Iran's so-called axis of resistance consists of Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas and other Palestinian groups, as well as Iraqi militant groups that have allowed it to diversify the threat against the region. While much of the axis has been severely weakened in the following months and years of the October 7th attack, a fragile ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon broke just on the third day of the war. And ever since, Hezbollah and Tel Aviv have been exchanging fire, stretching Israel's resources. So far, the Houthis have not entered the fray. But if the war intensifies, and it looks like it will, they could. And this would be a major development as it could resume the strikes in Red Sea at a time when the Strait of Hormuz is already paralyzed. Now to the fifth and final point of strategy, controlling the narrative. The man at the center of this information war is Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister of Iran. And for weeks now, he hasn't been just a diplomat, he has been appearing on international news outlets, especially American, to tell Iran's side of the story. And he isn't speaking in Persian. He is communicating in English deliberately.
There is no victory in this war, and they have not been able to achieve their targets, and they cannot achieve their targets in the coming days. As long as they continue, they cannot achieve anything.
So in modern conflict, territory is one battlefield, but narrative is the other. And Arakchi is able to achieve it in a very saturated pro-West media ecosystem. So these questions, why did Trump start this war? If it is legal, did Netanyahu misguide Washington? Or was Iran ever a threat? Are all conversations that have no place in today's geopolitics. As important as they are, now it's a game of chickens. Will Trump budge first or the Ayatollahs? And if neither does, how does this end? That's a question we are all thinking about. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'm Ananya Datta. Thanks for watching.